Friends of Refined Investments. Today, after a long time, we're finally back with another coffee and crypto. And of course, we have a familiar guest here, someone you all know. We have Caro here from Crypto Heroes. First of all, thanks for taking the time to join us. How are you doing?
Thanks for having me, my friend. I'm actually doing great, despite the tough market conditions we're facing right now. It's great to see you again, too. It's been such a long time.
Thank you.
We've been on this journey together as crypto influencers for a while now, so I'm really glad about that.
Absolutely, I feel the same way. And yeah, a lot of people have been asking for it, leaving comments saying, hey, do another coffee and crypto. Caro, you were asked about it a ton, so of course you. So we thought, hey, let's do it again. Basically, coffee and crypto number two. But I'd say let's get started right away. For anyone who might not know the format, we just answer a few community questions and talk about them. That's how it works. That's the format, basically. Before we get started, please give us a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. To get things started, today at 5 p.m., the Crypto Campus launches. You can already see the website in the background, of course. Visually, things will change a bit once the launch happens, but you can already check it out and take a look around. Like I said, there are now different packages and so on. They're live on the site now, so definitely check it out. I've put a lot of effort into it. And yeah, you can find all sorts of things on the campus, whether it's free stuff like the Crypto ABC or the Crypto Radar, which is basically coin market cap in German, or you have access to everything you need since various API keys are connected there. That means you get all the data and so on. You can also check your prices there, create an account, save your favorites, and so on. Set your preferences, and starting at 5 p.m., as I said, the whole range of products will be available and so on. Definitely check it out. I'd be really happy to see you there, but I'd say, yeah, let's continue with coffee and crypto with Caro and me. So let's go. First question. Looking back at the crypto market, maybe 2017, 2020, or whenever, what did you see differently back then than now? Because you grow as a person. I also see a lot of things from 5 years ago differently today. How is it for you?
I think the biggest difference is that I used to act very impulsively. During the 2017 bull run, I was brand new, and if you were there, you just know how it was. No matter what you invested in, it just shot up. That was such a beautiful bull run. You could just invest in whatever you wanted. You felt like Warren Buffett. Things would go up 100, 200% in just a few days. It was just,
Insane.
it was simply wonderful. Then, of course, you didn't sell at the peak, and you didn't sell in the bull run top zones either. You really thought it would just keep going up forever. You just didn't have the experience back then. 2021 was the first time I actually took some profits, but nowhere near what would have been possible. Not even close. That hesitation and waiting for the absolute peak, I do that differently this time. And I made a firm decision. When the alt season comes, I'll definitely start selling, even at small multiples. Start selling off. And then this time, the alt season just doesn't come. That was quite a surprise, too. But yeah, it just teaches us that maybe we shouldn't wait for those 20, 30, or 50 times gains, but maybe take some profits even at 5 times. Even if it's just a little, just for peace of mind. That's what I would do differently now. In the future,
Definitely. Yeah, you hear it all the time. People just don't cash out because they stay in too long. I think that's often the case, maybe with people who haven't invested much. Like someone puts 200 euros into project XY and then it goes up to 1,000. And then you think, well, what am I supposed to do with 1,000 euros now? I also think people should pay more attention to percentages. And if you ever get a 3x, at least take out your initial investment or something.
yeah, definitely. I think so too. I've caught myself doing that. And I don't want to mention any amounts. They're larger amounts, and it's no different for you. We've talked about this privately before. So these are small amounts that we invested. Still, it happens to me. It's not about the fact that I'm cashing out larger amounts, but rather that you always try to get the absolute maximum out of it. This striving for perfection, wanting to get the very best out of it, that's wrong. There's a saying, I can't quite remember it. Something like striving for perfection destroys productivity or progress. Exactly, it destroys progress.
Yeah,
Perfection doesn't exist. You can't hit that peak every time. You just end up destroying yourself.
absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, it's definitely an important lesson. One I think all of us have gone through. It's no different for me, and I can totally agree with that. So let's move on to the second question. I mean, what do you think is more dangerous in the crypto market today compared to before? For example, compared to the last two bull runs, or even 2017, 2018, or 2021? So, how would you assess that? Nowadays, since the market has changed so much?
Personally, I think the market has become much safer. Not if you look at all the hacks and scams, though. Safer in the sense that we're slowly getting regulations in place. Here we have MICA, the Genius Act, which has already been passed for stablecoins in the US. Now, the Clarity Act is coming soon. There are new regulations in Japan, in Australia, and Canada as well. So, we really see that the West and the modern countries have realized that the infrastructure being built right now, this underlying layer, is not going to disappear. I find it safer in the sense that
If you really do your research and look at which projects these giants are partnering with, it's much easier among all these. I don't even know how many there are anymore. Probably over 60 million tokens by now. It's much easier to figure out which ones you might want to bet on in the future. What I find more dangerous are all the narratives that are being pushed right now. You can see it yourself, right? Every day, some new influencer pops up, pushing a new narrative and constantly bringing in new people. And it's not necessarily a bad thing that there are so many new influencers. That's not what I'm talking about. What I find troubling is simply that all these new narratives are being pushed. Viewers are just being driven to invest in something. Oh, this weird meme coin could maybe do a 1000x? Go ahead. You don't even have to put in that much money. The problem is, that's the first step. That's the first step. Yeah, it's just 100 euros. If it does a 1,000 times, but what if I put in $300 or euros? Oh, come on. You know what? Hey, no risk, no fun. I've got 3,000 euros just sitting there right now. I'm doing it now. And what happens if it does 1,000 times? Then I'll show them, and then you end up down 99% before you know it. I think this barrier, this limit, it just gets lifted. At first, 100 isn't much, and then that limit just keeps moving higher and higher. That's the danger I see, these weird narratives that get pushed. Yeah,
definitely, and especially this thing where there's just no stopping anymore, like when you don't stick to your goals. I could sing a song about that too. I did it a ton in the beginning because you just can't get enough. And I mean, it's easy to say, of course, especially in a bear market or something. I'll have it under control, but anyone who's been through this once, twice, or three times knows it's extremely tough to really stick to your plan and say, hey, I had my target price, so here I'm cashing out with 20, 30% or whatever. Instead, you think, oh, come on, just one more week, just one more week. And also with the influencers, like you mentioned, I don't have anything against the fact that there's now a ton of content out there and that new people keep popping up on the scene. But the problem is, like you said, that kind of content doesn't come from years of experience. When someone makes content like you just mentioned, it's most likely because they've only been in the market for maybe 2 or 3 years at most and just haven't really understood what it's all about yet. And that's how videos like that come about. Because, I mean, it's probably the same for you. The longer you're in the market, the more you start to narrow down your portfolio a bit, or you increase your good positions and avoid the junk more and more. A lot of people don't know that. Those investing in crypto for a year who, thanks to the internet, can start a channel and say whatever they want. That's extremely dangerous.
absolutely. In the last bull run, or even in this one, I said that I was in 54 projects. That's going to be reduced. That's going to be reduced. If I sell next time, I've told myself that my next portfolio will have a maximum of 20 to 30 coins. And I'm even thinking about shrinking it even more.
That's already a lot, yeah.
That's actually already pretty big, to be honest. If you just look at who the winners are right now, there aren't that many projects. No.
Not at all. Honestly, I can count on one hand the ones I would really say are top. And I'm very, very skeptical about all the rest. Of course, it always depends on how much you invest, too. I have absolutely nothing against putting a lot into altcoins, and so on. That's cool, too. But the weighting just has to be right, and you can't always be dreaming. Like you mentioned earlier, hoping for a 500 times or 1,000 times or something like that. That's just really, really risky, plain and simple. Yeah,
But it's just this thing, I think. What used to trigger me too was just wanting to make quick money. I also think if there's some young people who just want to have a Lambo parked in front of their house, that's one thing. But there are a lot of people who think the same way I do. I see that in the community too. You want to help your family. You might want to fulfill a few wishes for your parents too. You have loved ones who aren't doing well financially, and you think, I could help them too. And out of that wishful thinking, you suddenly start taking bigger risks. And you think, yeah, come on, I'll just borrow a little more, maybe. And if it works out, I could help so many people. I think that's one of those things where you really have to be careful. Avoid thinking, I want to achieve it overnight. Instead, ask yourself, what does investing even mean? What am I doing? My fiat capital is just sitting there, eroding from inflation. I'm trying to invest it somewhere to keep pace with inflation. Ultimately, I'll at least match inflation and ideally grow on top of that. By how much, though? We'll see then. Don't set yourself up with these unrealistic goals. When you see some new influencer in Dubai driving a Lambo in the background in his villa, it's probably just a rental anyway. And he says, hey, do you want to achieve this too? Then just do what I'm doing. Those are just false narratives. And then some newcomers actually believe, yeah, look, he made it with his Lambo and his villa in the background. Now I want that too, so I'm going to do it as well. That's really dangerous because you end up with these expectations and they get crushed really fast. Yeah.
Totally. And I mean, it's just social media. I mean, social media doesn't show reality. People only ever show how great everything is. Like, oh, I have this, I'm buying that, I'm here, and whatever else. But they're probably lying in bed at night in the fetal position and crying, you know? You never really know what's going on, right? Don't take social media so seriously. For me, it's honestly just a shit show. But you just mentioned inflation earlier, and that actually fits with the next question. I mean, when you look at the current situation in general, you're really into this stuff, right? You spend every day dealing with all these topics, you upload 1,000 videos every day, and have been doing that for years. So definitely respect for that. And that means you're really deep into the subject, whether it's political tensions or not, unstable markets, interest rates, inflation too, and just in general. We can really feel this growing nervousness month after month, right? And now the question is, when do you see? Regardless of that, because a lot of people are slowly starting to lose faith in the next, the really hot positive phase for crypto.
I honestly think that's going to be sometime at the end of 2027, beginning of 2028 is when we'll see a slight reversal into a new bull run. I think until the end of this year, maybe the beginning of next year, we're still going to keep dropping. Of course, there can always be some relief rallies in between, but for me, it's clear that the bear market, especially in the crypto space, has been reached. On the stock market, we're seeing one all-time high after another. The money supply is slowly being expanded. The consequences of expanding the money supply, we've also had 80% of all dollars ever printed. You can see that in the M1 money supply in 2022. Now we're slowly starting to see the after effects of inflation, where in the US, they're slowly not able to keep cutting it down further. Just think of all the things they've done. They changed the basket of goods they used to measure inflation. They took out the products whose prices rose the most and replaced them with products that didn't go up as much. They've done this several times now, just so inflation doesn't look as high. And then when they calculate overall inflation across various industries, they lowered the weighting for the insurance sector a bit because that one went up by 36% with inflation. So they thought if we leave that in, inflation will go up. So let's just lower the weighting for that sector. So they've tried everything possible to make inflation not look so bad. They have no tools left. And the economy is collapsing in Europe and in many economically strong countries are in recession. Germany has been for several months now. You can see it when you go shopping here. Yeah, a lot of products have almost doubled in price over the last 10 years. It's pretty crazy. And we're seeing it globally too. The yields on long-term government bonds in Japan and the US are slowly starting to rise sharply. We keep seeing currencies like the lira, which is completely tanking in Turkey. Well, also because of the sanctions. The overall economic situation is just bad. We have the real estate market, which is just about to peak. There's a model by Patel, and it says that we'll see the peak phase in the real estate sector at the end of this year. And it really does look that way. When the real estate sector starts to buckle along with the economy, if you look at the banner cycle, for example, It also predicts that the top will be reached in 2026 and that we'll go into a recession. And with the banner cycle, it's always about the end of the year. It's not looking good. The geopolitical situation isn't really great either. The beautiful little country, the biblical land in the Middle East, is now also announcing that Turkey will be the next Iran, and that Egypt is probably also on the target list. We keep seeing new announcements about new viruses and possible lockdowns that could be coming. You don't even know where to start anymore. It seems like everything's going down the drain, while in the traditional stock market, we're seeing one all time high after another. So either the stock market isn't reflecting what's really happening, or the market is saying, yeah, everything's great, everything's fine, but somehow we just don't feel it. Somehow, when you go outside and look around, you just don't feel like everything's okay. You can see globally that things are not okay. And then you realize what Warren Buffett said recently, that the stock market has basically just become speculative gambling and is currently completely overvalued. And this bubble is going to burst, Sad.
Above all, you also have to consider if you really take a look outside or see the bigger picture, just look at all the presidents from different countries. They're the biggest criminals. What do you think they're up to behind closed doors in their circles? Playing games, whether it's on the stock market or anywhere else. They can line their pockets with billions and trillions with all the crap they're pulling, and nothing happens, you know? And to me, it's all just a ridiculous game at this point. It has no substance, nothing. Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, they know ahead of time what's going to happen. You could bet on all of it.
I can't remember which car manufacturer it was. So we're sending billions to Ukraine to help them in the war. I can't remember which luxury car manufacturer it was. Since the war in Ukraine started, they've had record sales in Ukraine.
That's crazy too.
Villas being bought up by politicians there, all over the world. So I'm wondering, how does that happen? Is there some kind of connection? Is money being laundered there or not? There's plenty of evidence, but that's just how it is. What are we supposed to do? We just have to make sure we act the right way somehow, and somehow get a piece of the action ourselves. That,
I see it the same way. Especially in Europe, sure, there's corruption. It's just different from South America or Asia. It's not as obvious. So, in Asia or South America now, what's the average income in a normal area? Maybe 300 to 500 euros at most, and then you have a regular salary. Of course, if you hand a police officer there the equivalent of 1,000 euros, of course he'll just turn around and walk away. You just can't bribe a police officer that easily in Germany, for example. There, it just happens at higher levels with more money and a bit more cleanly. But definitely, the whole bunch is corrupt. Definitely. Well, it doesn't really matter anyway. We don't need to talk about the parties now either. Just start with that. I'm out of that anyway. I don't take sides because I think it's all crap. But take the AFD. It was only created so people who are against foreigners would have their own party. So they'd have their own party. But let the AFD win, nothing will change at all. Who will you vote for? The AFD, the CDU, or others? It is all crap.
I think it's always like that. When I talk about politics sometimes, like I said, when I mention that little country in the Middle East, I think some people always think, oh, he's somehow anti Semitic or he doesn't like the government.
Next, why label you for something like that? It's nonsense.
Or if you say something positive about Putin, if he's ever done something, you immediately get put into a box. Oh, he's that guy. He loves him. And I can say 1,000 times that I'm not on any political side. Exactly. You carry your cross too. We are men of the Lord. I have to love everyone. I really don't care at all what politicians do or which direction they go. If Trump does something right, then I'll say he did a good job. If Putin does something right, then I'll say I liked what he did there. And if Iran does something right, then absolutely. But that's just how society is these days. You get labeled right away, put into a box and silenced. He's the anti Semite. He's the Nazi. That's it. In the end, just like you said, I stay out of things like that. I just try to give my neutral opinion and to gain a better understanding of how we can position ourselves financially to somehow capitalize on these opportunities in the future and ultimately to hedge ourselves against such unpredictable global occurrences.
I feel the same way, definitely. But yeah, that's the topic. Of course, you could talk about it for another 10 hours, but it's just sad, unfortunately, these days. And yeah, you just have to try to make the best of it for yourself, your circle, your family, your kids, for everything. And yes, there's probably not much more in our hands, probably. But let's see. Let's move on to the next question. Of course, what everyone is always interested in over coffee and crypto is what projects the creator sees at the top. So let's say these three cryptocurrencies. If I were to ask your best friend who doesn't currently invest in crypto, what would you tell him to buy?
That's always tough. Because right now, there are 15 to 20 that I'd like to buy, even the ones I already have in my portfolio. They're not even new projects. And I might even expand that to 30 since I'm not completely sure about some of them, so it's hard to narrow it down to just three. But if I had to say, based on the developments I'm seeing right now, from the partnerships I see, from the application side, personally, I just can't get around XRP. Yeah, what a surprise that he mentions XRP. But I just can't avoid it. No way around it. When you see what Ripple is doing right now, and a lot of people always say, that's just Ripple. XRP, the XRP ledger, is at the center of everything they do. Every service they build there is based on the XRP ledger. And for the first time, I think a lot of people don't understand this. We not only have the opportunity to invest in a company, they're going to go public at some point too. Through crypto, we have the chance to invest in a protocol, in the infrastructure itself. That's unique. That's unique.
Absolutely.
And when I look at what kind of development that is, I just can't get around XRP. Personally, I think the prices are still a bit too high. If I wanted to buy XRP personally for myself, I would wait. It's quite possible that it could drop further. Yeah, I think so. Despite the positive news, the good news, if the bear market continues and we keep dropping, I think XRP will go along with it. Although we are actually seeing that institutions, especially with XRP, are buying in massively. While XRP ETFs are being bought, Bitcoin and Ethereum ETFs are being sold off. It's definitely an interesting trend we're seeing here. Another project that has been heavily pushed by Google, of course, is Algorand. It's already quantum computing secure. Google released a report and named Algorand as the most secure quantum, the most secure protocol. And I've been raving about this project for a long time. It is actually the only decentralized protocol that successfully solves the complex blockchain trilemma in a unique way that only this specific protocol does. There are a few that solve it, but no one does it like Algorand. The only one that comes close after that is Multiverse X. Silvio Micali, he's a rock star in the programming world, is the founder behind Algorand. And for number three, honestly, yeah, there's Canton, which I'm looking into right now. They're also really, really strong.
Your name? Undo.
But Canton and Undo, I'm not involved with either of them yet. I thought I'd wait a bit longer until they drop. HBAR always has huge developments, but focusing on the latest news, it's XLM, XRP's little brother, because of those recent DTCC announcements. That crazy that they're going to be the tokenization platform there. That's just insane. Actually, most of them typically handle quadrillions of dollars every year in ETFs, in securities, in the commodities market. The whole thing is supposed to run on the XLM ledger starting in 2027. So those would definitely be the three specific ones that, based on all the current news and recent developments, I would say if I absolutely had to pick, I'd say those are the three most likely candidates.
Okay, that's definitely exciting. I mean, price wise and all that, it's always tricky. Yeah.
That's a different story.
I mean, what do you think? I mean, let's just brainstorm a little here. The whole financial system is totally outdated anyway. It's basically from the 70s or something, and it's just not up to date. Looking at the technologies we have today, they're outdated. Something new has to come along. That's why I believe in XRP, ISO coins, or even XLM. What do you think is possible there in the next 5 years? Because it's always a question of when this will actually be implemented, right? What does the elite want? What kind of plan are they following? When does this take effect? How do you see the future? And what happens then? Maybe even for XRP's price if everything goes perfectly.
I see a bright future. I mean, to be honest, I have been in the market since 2017. I started getting into it back in 2016, so it's already been 10 years now. And what's happening now? I could only have dreamed of this back then.
Absolutely.
That the European Union is spending hundreds of millions to regulate this and bringing out a law like MiCA. I thought it would take another 15 years before they even started thinking about it. And the US government, now they're already regulating stablecoins. And a lot of people don't even understand what's really behind it. Why did the Clarity Act not come before the Genius Act? They saw very clearly that the tokenization of assets, that these companies are becoming a real force. If Tether, as a stablecoin provider, I think, please don't hold me to this, but I believe they are the 18th largest creditor of the United States, the 18th largest holder of US government bonds. Just think about that for a second. Compared to nations, not just any companies, the US government has simply realized what kind of power these crypto stablecoin providers are slowly gaining. They offer you returns that bankers can only dream of.
And
If this whole thing gets regulated now, and people slowly start to realize that just by holding your stablecoins on a legitimate crypto exchange, you can get 5, 6, or even several percent returns just by holding them instead of your measly 1% or whatever on your savings account. Why on earth would anyone want to keep their money in the traditional fiat world anymore? And if we also consider that MasterCard and Visa, which are currently the two biggest payment service providers in the entire world, are now offering stablecoins across various different blockchains, and you can easily pay with your stablecoins and even earn consistent returns on them, then it really makes you wonder, why would we even have a need for traditional banks anymore? We'd only need to use a bank once as an on ramp. We have a tokenized version of fiat and ultimately never have to leave this tokenized world again. We can already pay with credit cards using our tokenized version. We can store it ourselves on our wallets, and that's exactly what they're afraid of. That's why the banks wanted this regulation. That's also why JP Morgan Chase and Jamie Dimon are fighting so hard against Coinbase right now, saying, we will fight to the end. That's exactly what they wanted to prevent. They didn't want people to be able to generate yield just by holding stablecoins, because they understood very well, if that's possible, then what's the point of banks anymore? If I want to make an international transaction and it takes 4 or 5 days, and I have to pay hundreds of euros in fees when transferring a few million, but I could do the whole thing for just a few cents within seconds over a blockchain, then why do we even need banks anymore? Excuse me? I earn more money when I hold stable coins. I have complete control over them when I hold them. I can transfer them wherever I want without having to explain to the bank that this is now over 10,000 euros. And now I have to explain to you what I want to do with my own money. Why? Why should I do that with banks?
just doesn't make any sense, honestly. I've already had too much experience, including negative experiences, especially in Germany with banks and all that, where I honestly sometimes felt like some kind of criminal, even though I just wanted to access my own money. And it wasn't even about 5 million or anything like that. We were talking about small amounts, just a few thousand, and yet they still interrogate you like you're some kind of, I don't know, big shot or something. It's just pure harassment, honestly. I really don't think much of it at all. I also once
had a similar conversation. I had almost exactly the same kind of conversation. I wanted to withdraw a pretty moderate amount, not too little, but not too much either. You're questioned as if you were a drug dealer, like you're doing something wrong. I looked at him and said, why do you need to know that now? Yes, we need to know that. I said, you do realize this is my money. Yeah, I pay fees just so you can manage my money here. Keep it safe for me. Why do I have to explain to you now what I want to do with my money? It's required by law. Unfortunately, we have to do this. It's not our choice. We'd like to let you do whatever you want with your money, but the law requires us to ask these questions. I'm sorry, Mr. Barbarian. There's nothing I can do.
It's just unbelievable what's happening in this world. We're already at the end. In any case, it's crazy what's happening in this country. I'm definitely not a fan of it either, but it was really interesting to hear your insights again after 5 years. And I was really glad you had the time and came by. And of course, we'll stay in touch anyway. And for you guys, feel free to ask questions in the comments. We'll answer them and hopefully see each other for a third time sometime soon. With that, take care.
It was a pleasure, my friend. Thank you.